The following is a Comfortably Zoned Radio Network production.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Comfortably Zoned Radio Network. My name is Blumkin, and I'm here with two special guests. We're starting a new series today on the podcast involving the Cleveland Indians, who, of course, been pretty competitive the last couple of years. David Nemec has been my partner on several baseball history programs called David Nemec's Old-Time History, Baseball History and Trivia. And today I'm introducing a friend of mine, a close friend of mine for 57 years, Al Anderson, who has been a Cleveland Indian fan since 1948 when he was 5 years old, and has been suffering along with them for the last 70 years. Welcome, gentlemen.
Welcome.
Thank you, Al.
Both of you.
Okay. Since, Al, this is your first time on one of these programs, I'd like David to start, to decide where we start, if that's okay with you.
Well, we could probably start back in 1901 because the suffering for Cleveland fans did not start in 1948. It's been going on ever since the team was formed. They had Charlie Summers, the original owner, really was a very good friend of Van Johnson's, who founded the American League. And Summers came in with money and helped capitalize some of the weaker teams, and ended up in Cleveland, which had been a real drag in the National League in the latter part of the 19th century. And the league had eventually ejected them after the 1899 season, when they finished about as bad a last as any team has ever finished. And they came in with prospects and promises and hopes. New park, new team name, and everything in 1901. But we could start there. We can go back there. We can swing around from almost any year you want to talk about. Something happened in Cleveland. Many of the
1908, David, isn't 1908 the year that? And I think both things in 1908 was Addie Joss. Wasn't that his perfect game? But that was also
yes,
that
his
game
perfect game. Probably the greatest pitching job ever in a clutch performance. Josh beat Ed Walsh 1-0. And this game was when both teams were very much in the pennant hunt. Cleveland ended up losing by half a game. The only teams that played a full schedule, I mean, they didn't play a full schedule, but the schedules will play a full schedule, and ended up losing a major.
They play a full schedule. It was the Tigers and the White Sox that didn't play full schedules.
Yeah.
One game they didn't make up.
Required to make up games at that time, and that's going on. That went on for a long time afterward. Cleveland was part of in 1918. Cleveland was very much in the hunt when the season was suddenly truncated because of World War I. They were climbing, and the Red Sox were slipping. And had the season gone to the end, there's a good chance Cleveland would have won. But going back a bit to 1906, Cleveland performed something that no other team in the American League has ever done, and it's only been done once in baseball history. They won the team triple crown: highest batting average, highest fielding average, lowest ERA. And guess where they finished? Every other team in the American League that's done it has won the pennant. Every other team in the National League except one that has done it has either won the pennant or won the pennant. That was the 1885 Giants, finished second, but with the highest second place finish ever. Cleveland in 1906, despite performing the team triple crown and having a very good team, managed to finish third. And
that was a guess on my part. Yeah.
Well, as I pointed out, though, to David, I think the 1948 season when Cleveland won the Triple Crown and yet took a playoff game against the Red Sox, that's rather shocking or striking.
They could have easily been the only team to lose pennants with 2 Triple Crowns.
Right.
It was the 1948 season was a hectic season, and I do remember it quite well. I don't remember.
Yeah, I said, I was only 5 years old, but what I remember was relatives from my family coming in, and my father getting them, tickets for the World Series, and everybody being very, very excited about it.
They were. I went to the very first World Series game I ever played in Cleveland Stadium. That was they played the first 2 games in Boston, then came to Cleveland, knotted up 1-1, and Gene Bearden pitched a shutout. I think they won 2-0. And Bearden had won, of course, the pennant playoff game and just was unbeatable in the last 2 or 3 weeks of the season, literally unbeatable. And and unfortunately, I have to say I went to the last World Series game I ever played in Cleveland Stadium too, and that was in 1954, only 6 years apart. If the stadium opened in the early 1930s, they didn't play all their games. They played a lot of games at League Park, but it existed for a long time until I think 2000. Was it 2003 when Jacobs Field opened, wasn't it, or was it 2004?
It was 2003, right?
2003. So they played from 31 to 2003 in Cleveland Stadium, which
they only played as far as I know, they only played the weekend games there, and they played the weekday games in League Park until Beck ended that.
Yeah, Beck ended it. And a big game when they were playing the Yankees sometimes during the week. And they did have night baseball in Cleveland. Cleveland was one of the first teams to have night baseball. They would also play night games there. I remember going to a night game in 1946 in Cleveland Stadium. And I went to a twilight doubleheader in 47. And I went to several night games.
David, do you remember what time the game was? Because I was shocked how night games in the summer often started at either 8:30 or 9 o'clock. They really wanted it to be dark when the ball game started.
Yeah, they did. You're right, Al. They did. They started at 8. They would start twilight doubleheaders around 5. And the rule in the American League, twilight doubleheaders were just twilight doubleheaders had a different rule. The lights could be turned on whenever they were needed when a twilight doubleheader started. But if you were playing a doubleheader in the American League in 1947, I went to one with the Yankees, and the game started in daylight, you could not turn the lights on for the second game, even if they were needed. And there was a crucial series with the Yankees in mid-season. The Yankees won the first game doubleheader, which took about 6 hours because of rain delays. And then everybody sat around for half an hour between games. Instead of starting the second game right away, which they could have done, really, they waited. And then Snuffy Sternweiss came to bat for the Yankees. And the nightcap took the first pitch, turned to the umpire and said, something like, I can't see it. And the umpire called the game right then and there. People had waited around for literally half an hour, 40 minutes for one pitch. It was unbelievable.
Well, they couldn't put the lights on.
They could not put the lights on, no. You started the game in the daytime, and twilight games were exceptions. And that was the rule in the National League too for a long time. Yeah, you could not, and you couldn't. And of course, there were all these blue laws and so forth, and curfews and.
Yeah, the American League had a curfew. I think no inning could start after 12:59 a.m. for years.
Yeah.
And of course, Pennsylvania they used to play a Sunday doubleheaders after Pennsylvania finally in 1934, allowed that they couldn't start a game after an inning after 6:59. So doubleheaders, games ran long first. The second game would always wind up being suspended. If they got 5 innings. If they didn't get 5 innings, then it would be treated like a rainout.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. It's in Cleveland. So Cleveland was, if you look at their overall record from 1901 through 2017, they're over 500. And even though they had from 1959 until 2004, and in 2004 the season ended, the strike ended the season before September. But until 2005, really from 1959 to 2005, Cleveland never played a meaningful game in September. They were out of it every single year by the time September rolled around.
What about 1990? You meant 1994.
I think you meant 1994. I think you meant.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, 19. Yeah.
So 1995, they finally got into the. They won 144. With the strike-shortened season at the beginning.
Yeah, that was 2005 or
1995.
95.
Yeah.
Yeah, in 1994, when the season ended, if they had taken the teams that with the best records and gone on with the postseason, Cleveland would have made it as a wild card. Even though the White Sox had a better record, and that this 94 is the first season when both leagues divided into three divisions, with the three division winners and the wild card all going to a playoff, a double round of playoffs. That was the first season when that happened, and Cleveland was involved. And Cleveland's been involved in a lot of things that are famous first in baseball history.
Well, perhaps one of the more infamous was the nickel beer night and the forfeit of that game. Unfortunately, is that the last forfeit for that, or was the Disco Derby in Chicago after the
Disco Derby? Yeah,
the Disco Demolition Night. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And there was a player that spoke at one of our SABR meetings here named Rusty Torres, who was at the Big Three. He was at the Washington Senators' last game in 1971, which was a forfeit. He's a 10-cent beer night in Cleveland, and he was at the Disco Demolition Night. He had the triple.
He was there for all three.
All three, yeah, the trifecta, yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. That's quite an accomplishment. I didn't know that. Yeah, but so we have a lot we can talk about with the Indians.
Well, do you want to talk about the Cleveland? Al had said that we might be talking about Cleveland 2018.
Yeah,
this
absolutely.
year.
Yeah, I admit I haven't followed it as closely as both of you probably have. But one thing I've been noticing is that, and I don't know why, Kipnis hasn't been pulled from the lineup, and Gonzalez or Ramirez hasn't been moved to second, and Gonzalez put on third, or vice versa. But
right, anything. Well, he finally at least adjusted the lineup to put Brantley batting second, and immediately it paid off, dividends. I was there for the weekend, and so on, and scoring runs and the new sabermetrics, of course, are suggesting that second batters are perhaps as valuable as third or fourth batters, and teams have moved up some key hitters. And when you have a Kipnis who's hitting 174 and Brantley who's hitting 338, I mean, that's a gigantic difference.
It is, and I can't explain why Terry continues to play Kipnis. I don't get it.
Right. He had a wonderful spring training, but even there, he did very, very well early and led in RBIs, runs, batting average, so of all teams. But then as more and more teams were pitching their regular players instead of their minor leaguers, Kipnis quickly fell off, and he's never regained. And it.
No, I think he's had too many injuries, and I think he's only about 31 or 2, but he's an old 31 or 2, and
it appears. Yes.
How much are they paying him?
I'm afraid they're paying him too much. It's not the team-friendly contract like Cleveland has with Jose Ramirez, that's very fortunate for the team. But Kipnis, I'm afraid, is he's difficult, and I don't think anybody would want to trade for him anyhow.
No, they wouldn't. They almost got. I thought they were going to make a deal with the Mets. I was hoping they were going to make a deal with the Mets, but the Mets weren't going to fall for it. So I don't know. They unless they bench him, I don't see them going very far this year.
Well, the question is what has happened about the bullpen, and that has perplexed many people, and and it's not. I mean, Andrew Miller, of course, only had a couple games since he's been back, but Cody Allen has not pitched well, and Otero and Nick Goody and McAllister. I mean, there are many problems with this.
I thought several of those guys pitched over their head last year. Goody for one.
Apparently they. You're right, David.
Otero is a marginal bullpen. I can see why they hung on it. They got him fairly cheaply, and he does do a decent job most of the time. But Goody was. I'd never even heard of Goody until last year, and suddenly
the Yankees had him for a cup of coffee a while back, and the ultimate meltdown was besides the other night when they blew a 4-run lead to the Tigers when they played the Yankees here, and they got 4 runs in the top of the 8th inning. It was almost like Game 7 in 1960. Yankees got 4 in the bottom to tie it up, and then the kid Torres hit a 3-run home run in the bottom of the 9th.
Yeah, it's.
I think they brought Allen in the 8th inning in that game.
Yes, they've been forced with Miller. When Miller was injured, they had to extend Allen, and that has not worked out well at all.
I don't think Cody Allen should be the closer. He's a respectable relief pitcher, but he's not a really not a closer in the sense that you're gonna you need a guy to go deep in the postseason and be able to count on him. We all remember Jose Mesa in '97. He had a great year in '95, but he wasn't really needed that much in the series. So, but he did give up pretty much the season-ending home run in '96 to Alomar. Okay. And then in '97 in the World Series, he coughed it up. Yes.
Well, because the Central Division in the American League is, by miles the easiest division in baseball. The question is, can even a mediocre Cleveland, and they're the only team that has a positive run differential in the division. I mean, it appears they can perhaps hold on and win it, but the question is, can they do anything postseason?
Well, they've got to get another. They thought they had a deep starting staff, and at Salazar, I don't know why they let these guys go home and don't supervise them during the winter. and Tomlin looks like he's ready for the senior league, and so they've got 2 quality starters. Barr is okay, and Salazar could be very good. And Clevenger is coming.
Clevenger's been very good.
If it weren't for Clevenger, they'd really be in big trouble.
So, but it just doesn't seem to me that Minnesota or Detroit particularly. I mean, I think Detroit will probably finish down there towards the White Sox, and
they're playing very well right now.
Royals. They are playing well, but it looks like it's
winning games.
I think Minnesota. I think Cleveland is if they think that they're going to breeze in just with the squad they're fielding now, I don't think it's going to happen. They're going to be in a dogfight. in September with either Minnesota or perhaps Detroit. Yeah, you're right, because it's you're not going to win the division with 86 wins or 87 wins. You're probably going to need closer to 90.
Right.
And I don't know that Cleveland's capable of that right now.
And have you heard an update on Salazar? Is he supposed to come back like after the All-Star break? I haven't heard.
I know that he's not going to be out until June. They've been extending his DL time every time I see his name mentioned. I don't know how badly. Maybe he's never going to come back. I don't know what he really did. They could have caused such a, whether he was throwing. Maybe I don't know whether he tore his rotator or partially tore it. I have my suspicions that he partially tore it. And they're hoping it's going to heal and they won't have to do surgery, but they probably will. And I don't know. Don't they have guys in AAA that are?
Well, Plutko, who they did bring up, and actually in Plutko, and I forget who that doubleheader. They had a forced doubleheader with Toronto or somebody, and he pitched and he won.
Yeah,
he won, and he is the only one at Columbus amongst the starters. They have brought up, of course, a few of these relievers, but it's been a very, very small sample on them. But as badly as you said, Otero and McAllister and Tyler Olson, who had, I wonder how many, I don't know, Al, Tyler Olson had, over 20 games last year? Well, he had also over 20 because he was a left-handed specialist, but he never gave up a run last year.
I know, and I thought that was a tremendous fluke. Yeah, I was
a tremendous fluke.
That was going to be taken seriously. And
but I think the first game he came in this year, he gave up a run, so it instantly or immediately caught up with him.
Yeah. I had never even heard of him, to be frank, until last year. And I was surprised. I was more surprised probably than anybody by him because it seemed
he pitched a couple
Seattle
times
had
in the playoffs.
The Yankees had him.
Yeah, and
he
didn't do it there.
Them saw anything. Yeah, he was terrible with both the Yankees and Seattle. And,
well, who do you think is capable of beating them in that division? The Twins?
Minnesota. I think
it appears. They're the only likely. I cannot imagine.
Yeah,
the Tigers.
If the Tigers want to spend money and go out and get people like Jay Bruce, and who, if the Mets aren't still in it, the Mets might sell Bruce again this year and then get him back. I seen it. Why not? You can pay him, unload him, and get it. Because Bruce seems to like playing for the Mets. And I was surprised Cleveland didn't try to keep him. Because he really, in the postseason, at least in the beginning of the postseason, the first few games was pretty much their whole offense. They had almost nothing going for them offensively in
people like playing
Yankee
for the Mets.
Series.
People like playing for the Mets because they don't enjoy playing under any pressure.
That's true.
Yeah.
Well, I think Callaway's a good manager. If they allow Callaway to go out and get good players, I think they still could. I don't think Washington's that strong. I don't think Atlanta and Philadelphia.
No, the Mets basically are in free fall. They've won 9 out of the last 27, which is 333. And
the Dodgers did that and they did that late in the season last year. They had a free fall.
But they built up such a fantastic lead that it didn't matter. And look what they're doing now.
Yeah.
Well, Callaway, his importance to Cleveland, though, and working with, although they also gave credit to the Columbus pitching coach for working on Kluber and giving Kluber a terrific two-seam fastball that all of a sudden changed. Kluber, who obviously, when he was with San Diego, was is about as mediocre a pitcher as there was, and suddenly he's become, one of the half dozen best pitchers in baseball. But Callaway, little suggestions is what most of them, and apparently very good on building the confidence of the pitchers. And,
that's important.
Carl Willis
important.
apparently doesn't quite have that same knack with the.
Pitching coaches. It's not about just teaching how to pitch. It's really about building confidence too. You're right. You have to be able to go out there and think you're capable of getting every hit around in every situation. If you don't feel the capability, then you're not going to do it. Not that I have to bring any experience to the table as a pitcher myself, but I know from talking to pitchers that I didn't, that were major leaguers, that they always, I remember talking to Lemon, and Lemon, when he changed over to pitcher, he didn't feel that confidence in 47, 46. But he said by 48, with Bill McKechnie, made me feel I could be one of the best pitchers of the American League. Because every pitch I threw did something. Every fastball, it did something unexpected. I didn't know where it was oftentimes where it was going to go. And Lemon gave up a lot of walks, but he turned into a great pitcher. And,
right. Well, in those years they were called very narrow strike zones.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, and Wynn, of course, when he came over from Washington, he gave credit to Mel Harder as teaching him how to pitch. So,
if you throw out
Harder.
If you throw early Wynn's years in Washington, his numbers and Lemon's number are very, very similar.
Yeah. Yeah, and early Wynn was a real find. That turned out to be, at the time of the trade was made, Cleveland fans were like, what? Why would they get early Wynn? Nobody really ever, he'd been a losing pitcher all his whole career, but he was with a terrible team. And, he came to Cleveland in 49, and did he lead the league in ERA that year?
50. He led the league in ERA, and 50 was a 320.
The highest.
320.
Yeah, 50 was a big hitting year in the American League. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a huge year. Yeah. But then he started winning 20 games, and early Wynn was people, hitters were afraid of him because Wynn would hit guys, and he wouldn't try to hurt them, but he would definitely hit them, and Cleveland had a great staff in the early 50s. Probably,
that was the original Big Four, right?
Staff.
Wynn, Feller, Garcia.
Yeah, none of them were lefty though.
Well, and they got Herb Score. Could have been the best lefty ever.
Joe McDougal was never the same player after that either.
No.
He said he just lost he had a big year in 56 and was playing equally as well in 57 when that happened, and he just basically lost his enthusiasm.
He still continued to be a good ball player.
He retired after 1960 because they want to be exposed to the expansion draft.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point, and he would probably have been. Yeah. But Score, I don't know what happened to Score, because Score did come back, and he had some good games. He had some shy games but Cleveland gave up on him after the 59 season, and traded him for Barry Latman.
Right.
And the White Sox never got much on.
Well, that was the pair. Weren't those simultaneous games or days? First, they traded the more famous one was the Colavito for Keene trade, and then it was like the next day they traded Score for Barry Latman. I mean, Frank Lane.
And they had the immortal.
Yeah, Frank Lane would build teams and then ruin them. I mean, he ruined that 59 team very, very quickly.
Yeah, he did. He made three. Well, the Sporer-Latman trade didn't turn out terrible.
Oh, the one where he traded McLisher, who had won 35 games in 2 years, and was an American League. He traded into the National League for Johnny Temple, who was,
But Temple was
terrible.
both of them. But McLisher never pitched well again either.
No,
he never did either.
I think both of them would have been happier staying where they were.
Yeah, Temple was a 300 hitter, and he started hitting 260, in the American League.
Yeah, I think the American League was a tougher league still until the late 50s. But then, with the number of, black players coming into the National League, great black players coming in, and the National League became the stronger league. And that probably
three of the better teams, that the Tigers, Red Sox, and Yankees, were very, very, very slow to get any African American players. I think by then, Al hadn't all of the National League teams.
Yeah, the last one was the Phillies. The Yankees were ahead of the Phillies because Elson Howard was their first black player in 1955. The Phillies didn't integrate until I think it was 1959.
The Phillies were about as late
by the name of John Kennedy.
Yeah.
As Tigers and Red Sox.
Yeah, Tigers was Ossie Varjol, who was really, from the Caribbean, and the Red Sox, of course, were last with Pumpsy Green.
Yeah.
And Cleveland, talking about Cleveland was second and first in the American League, but second team overall, right? Nobody in the National League. They brought up players.
Nobody in the National League, no, not in 47.
Except for the Dodgers.
Three teams that integrated fairly early in the National League with the Dodgers, the Giants, and the Boston Braves.
Yeah.
And the Boston Braves bought Sam Jethro for a crowd blew him out the price from Rickey.
Well, Sam Jethro had played, David, wasn't he with the Cleveland Buckeyes? He was one of the star players.
Yeah, he had. And he fudged his age, I think, when he came in too. Because I remember seeing him in spring training. I was living in West Palm Beach. He was then with the Pirates, and he was playing with glasses in '54. And
he only played one game with the '54 Pirates.
Did he?
He was out of the majors in '53 because he was replaced when the Braves moved to Milwaukee by Bill Bruton. And Jethro was 6 years older than what they had on the backs of the baseball cards.
Yes, and Luke Easter was a similar case. Luke Easter may have even been more than 6 years older.
And Al had the opportunity because Luke worked for my dad. I think you met Luke Easter, correct?
Yeah, 1970, yeah.
Did you really?
Yeah.
I never did.
Yeah. And, the thing, David, when I shook hands, and normally, because I'm a pretty big guy, and when I was a school teacher, kids all made fun of how large my hands were. But when I shook hands with Luke Easter, I looked at my little hands and little fingers. His hands were absolutely enormous.
No, I did. I passed him. I never shook his hand. I used to live down the street from Jimmy Dudley, the Cleveland broadcaster, and his stepson was in my class, and he'd host the Indians. They'd have a summer cookout every summer, usually on an off day, a Monday or whatever day they were off. And I remember Easter coming out and getting his Cadillac, getting out of his Cadillac. He was big. And, he was the biggest by far. He looked bigger in person than he did on the field.
And Al, how much did Luke, he fibbed about his age by 5 years.
Oh, yeah, 6 years.
Too.
They had the back, I remember the backs of the early Topps cards he was on had 1921 as the birth year, and it turned out to be 1915.
And he was another guy who needed.
Yeah.
By the time when he still was having big years in AAA. He was wearing glasses.
He was 35 years old when he made good with the Indians in 1950.
Yeah, yeah. They thought he was still in his late 20s. Yeah. Yeah.
And by the way, just for your information, I found a couple of interviews on YouTube with Al Rosen.
Yeah,
that was done about 5-6 years ago.
Yeah, Al that's another sad.
Yeah, and he got hurt in the '54 All-Star game, his hands, and he never recovered from that. Really.
Yeah, he had a broken finger, and they kept playing him.
Yeah, but it grew. It didn't grow back. It didn't heal normally.
It didn't heal normally, and he couldn't grip the bat.
Yeah.
Tightly as he was used to. Rosen also had an incident early in the '54 season where he was caught with a bat that had nails in it. And,
oh boy!
I don't know if he was suspended or just fined, but they pulled the bat out, and it was the last incident. I never ever heard of an incident since where they actually found nails in a bat. He had darkened the bat. It was like a black bat.
Yeah.
And the nails were shielded by black paint. But somebody like Sammy White or somebody catching noticed that, wait a minute, what's going on here? I see, looks like a nail protruding here. So he called, I don't know who was umpiring home plate, called it to his attention, and the umpire took the bat out and examined it and threw it out. I don't remember what happened to Rosen. He might have been suspended for a game or two, and he definitely was fined. But
well, talking about doctoring of the bats, was Albert Bell and Sammy Sosa the last two who were caught with corked bats?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, well, the big one back in the '60s was Norm Cash.
Yeah,
who probably had 360 because of between that and the expansion
the corked bat.
Yeah, the cork bat. Yeah.
Yeah, he had that incredible year.
Yeah, because he fell off 118 points the next year. He had 243 after hitting 361.
But
I think it's probably the record for that. Yeah.
Yeah, almost.
Well, Bell, was it 1995 or was it later when the bat was confiscated?
It was shepherded through the tunnel, or
right. Somebody I can't
over the
remember
ventilation
the player.
system, or somebody crawled took it out of the umpire's room and crawled away.
Gaylord Terry, I think it was.
It wasn't Gaylord.
No, somebody else.
No.
Yeah.
It wasn't a pitcher, though. I think it might have been Alan Embry or somebody like that.
Yeah.
Who did it? Somebody who was expendable in case he was caught. But Cleveland really. It's I don't know what's going to happen to this year's team, but they're always interesting, even when they're bad. They're always doing something that makes them fun to watch.
Yeah, well, in the '80s, they had a winning season. I think it was '86, and Sports Illustrated picked them to win everything in '87.
Right.
And they were the only team I think ever go from a 100-game losing season to a winning season back to a 100-game losing season.
Yeah. Pat Corrales.
Well, that's why Sports Illustrated was happy with their 2014 prediction on the Houston Astros. They were trying to make up for that prediction on Cleveland, which was really terrible.
Yeah. Well, Cleveland, Pat Corrales, all the blame fell on Corrales. It really wasn't his fault because he knew they needed pitching, and they just wouldn't go out and get it. They pretty much held fast to the same guys. They didn't do much over the winter. They figured that Joe Carter was going to continue to be Joe Carter, and all the pitchers were going to continue to be the way they'd been in '86. They weren't.
Corey Snyder was
so much hitting that Corey Snyder was on that. Yeah, part of that
was with him, and yet the stories with Corey Snyder were supposed to be that his father, who had been his high school coach and who he admired so much, he would listen to his father, but he wouldn't listen to minor league coaches or major league coaches, batting coaches, or anyone else. And
something went wrong there.
Yeah, he was one of those ones that was ticketed to Hall of Fame before he ever played a game.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. You can't. Yeah, those were bad teams, but they still always would come up with somebody like Super Joe or Corey.
Well, you remember Rudy Regalado and Walter Bond.
Rudy the Red Hot Rapper. Yeah.
He just passed away a couple months ago.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That leaves three from. I think that leaves three from the '54 team that are still around: Don Morsey, Wally Westlake, and Hal Narragon.
And Westlake has got to be considerably old.
He was 97 last December.
97.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, because he was. Yeah.
No, the Washington outfielder Gil Cohn turned 96 today.
Wow. Yeah, I remember. I saw all those guys. Yeah, I saw Westlake play with Pittsburgh.
In fact, a number of months ago, I did a podcast with Irv Noren, who is now 93, going on 94. So, some of these guys still have all their marbles, and some of these guys probably that age don't know what day of the week it is, or day of the month it is, what year it is. It's just a function of life at this point.
Well, Mickey Grasso, who was certainly a minor character on the '54 team, is he still living now? Or
no, he died a long time ago.
Oh, okay.
He was like 55 when he died. Yeah. And
he died so long ago, I never heard about him.
Yeah, in fact, Grasso, I remember back of his 52 Topps card, they talk about the fact that he was his war record, which means you're dealing with a guy who couldn't play very well.
The '54 team had some real characters. I mean, Sam Denty came to spring training and brought his slogan with him: "Win plenty with Denny." And they bought into it, and they kept him on the team all year to back up George Strickland. And Strickland, the '54 team had. You look at the lineup. Look at some of the batting averages. You wonder how did this team
awful. Right? How did this team win?
Yeah, Philly had a terrible year.
He had 226.
Strickland didn't hit. Avila won the batting championship. They got Wirtz in a good trade that really made. They
gave up Bob Shackles for him.
Yeah.
Bob Shackles was Al found the missing two victories.
Yeah.
He could only account for 109.
Back in the days. This is a lot of years ago when the original McMillan came out. That came for 109, and I started going to the pitches alphabetically, and finally I hit on Shackles.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it wasn't like now.
No, I know.
Yeah.
McMillan, they didn't, and I used to talk to Palmer about that. I'd say, look, the St. Louis Browns won 88 games or whatever it was in 1888. And I went through the McMillan, I only find 86 wins. Who won the other two games? And, and he said, and that continued into the 80s, really. Almost to the last editions. They still didn't have full rosters and complete stats.
Well, Lyle Spath, who has the record committee, said if you add the teams to the league and the players to the teams and the teams to the league, it didn't balance out until sometime in the late 60s.
That's right.
Wow.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then there's, I don't know, I still don't. I think if we went back, if someone someday will start going back into the 19th century, but I don't think you even have to go that far. I think you have to go anything pre-1920 is suspect. Because there were a lot of ICI sheets and there were a lot of miscalculations.
Well, you had the thing with Van Johnson declaring that pitchers shouldn't be credited with wins and losses for several years in the teens.
Yeah. And those were done retroactively.
Yeah.
And you remember Dick Thompson found that missing player who pinch run one game and wasn't even in the last McMillan.
Yeah.
I think with the 17 Browns, Ivan Bigler. And
weren't there sports writers who put themselves in the box scores?
Yeah. Yeah, the state of the numbers then were somewhat based on the state of inebriation of the sports writer.
Yeah. And different teams would score games differently. Like the Chicago paper would have Anson down for 4 hits, and the Baltimore paper would have him down for 3, and the reverse would be for Keeler. Baltimore would have Keeler down for 4 hits. Chicago would have him down for 3. And, you never can sort through all that stuff and get it right. But
well, David, do you know when did they come out with an official score for all of the games? What year that was?
I mean, the games were scored. They had the official scores in the 70s, 1870s. And those score sheets were sent in to the league. And sometimes they weren't tabulated until after the season. And there were horrible mistakes still made. I mean, and the early Macmillans have had Harry Stovey hitting like 404 in 1884 and winning the batting championship. And that remained in the Macmillans until the 1980s. And they finally figured out that he he's like 320 or something like that. and it turned, I think it was Orr that finally got credit for the batting championship. And they had Dude Estherbrook hitting over 400 too, and Estherbrook never came anywhere within 100 points of his batting average that year. There was all kinds of crazy stuff that slipped through the cracks in the early years. And nobody really paid that much attention. I know. They took it for granted that the official scorer was honest and sober and knew what an error was as opposed to a hit, and treated every player the same as far as errors and hits went.
Well,
that certainly was not true.
I remember a story about Sam Rice 30 years after he retired, and he retired with 2,987 hits, which kept him from getting into the Hall for a while. And he said if he would have known 3,000 would have been so big, he would have stayed.
Yeah,
well, that was the
milestones weren't that big, 1926 or whatever.
Well, there was no Hall of Fame. There was no Hall of Fame when Sam Rice retired.
Well, Canseco, about the 40 homers and 40 steals, it was Bobby Bonds, who, of course, was fairly close to those numbers on several years. But when he was playing, nobody made a big deal about 40 homers and 40 steals in the same season. And Bonds insisted that if that was a milestone worth working for, he could have done it several of those years.
No, May said that if he would have known that this was a big deal, he could have done it. Mantle.
Yeah, there are all these guys. I think if Cobb had known that that someday somebody like Pete Rose would have come along, or there was going to be a Hall of Fame, or that everybody was really going to care how many hits he had, Cobb could have stuck around another year or two, I think, and been pinch hitter or off the bench for somebody, and who knows how many hits he would have ended up compiling. But those guys,
he was 41 when he retired. 1928 was his last season. He was 41.
Yeah. Yeah, well, there were guys who went on to their mid-40s even then. Quinn went. How old was Quinn? He was around 48, 49.
Yeah, but that was a pitcher mostly,
Yeah, but
Bartolo Colon's still out there pitching fairly effectively at age 45.
Yeah, I see that.
Yeah.
I remember when he came up with Cleveland, and
he was skinny.
People were predicting. Yeah, he was skinny.
Yeah.
And people were predicting that if he didn't change his motion, he was going to have a short career.
Yes.
Of all the pitchers on that team, on those Cleveland teams, he's turned out to be the 90s teams, early 2000 teams. He's turned out to be the best. The longest, as far as longevity, anyway. So basically, it's 2 is going to be, I don't know how many.
Well, and he never won. Did Colon ever even come close to a Cy Young? Whereas Cliff Lee, of course, the Sabathia.
He won the Cy Young 1 year. Not with Cleveland. I think he was with the Angels when he won the Cy Young.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah.
Yeah, he never did with Cleveland. I don't know if Cleveland's had it, well, except for, they had Kluber.
Well, he's one of
Kluber too. Yeah.
He's one of the, I think there's one other player whose name escapes me right now. The only players that are left from the 1990s are still active.
Let's see who else it could be. That's interesting. Because,
I saw the other one, they talked about the other one on MLB a week ago, but it's just not coming to me right now.
Probably a relief pitcher, I think.
But Al would point out probably a left-handed relief pitcher.
Yeah.
Left-handed relief specialist could last forever.
Yeah, like Rick Honeycutt.
Yeah, I think he did the time with Cleveland also. I think this guy. I'm not sure.
Well, Paul Ossenmacher was the left-handed relief specialist for Cleveland in the 95, 97.
Yeah, he has more games and innings pitched, but that now has become fairly common with these left-handed specialists.
Yeah. Cleveland it's too bad that Cleveland didn't break through in those years. Well, it's just like it's too bad they didn't break through in the early 50s. I mean, they had the Yankees to catch every year, and the year they caught the Yankees was the year when Casey Stengel had his best team. The Yankees
103 wins.
The Indians beat the bad teams worse than the Yankees did that year. The White Sox won 94, finished third. The Red Sox finished fourth with 69 wins. The Indians beat the Red Sox 20 times that year.
Yeah.
Of course, it's impossible to duplicate because they don't play each other that much anymore.
No.
That's an whole other time. All right, gentlemen, we're running out of time. It's been very interesting. Al, I hope you enjoyed it.
Well, I did, and I know I enjoyed
Al, I hope you root for
you and
How
David.
about the Cleveland? What do you say about the Cleveland Cavaliers tonight? What are they going to do?
Well, I will be hoping. I'm concerned whether one player, LeBron, has played his heart out, obviously, in this playoffs.
Yeah.
But, can a couple of Porter or Love step up, or Smith? Somebody else is going to have a very good game as well.
Smith was terrible the other night, and Hill was terrible, and even if those guys are on, this Boston's a young team. They're strong, and they're confident now. I don't know that. I'll be surprised if the series goes more than 5 games.
Yeah, I'm worried
about that. They don't play till tomorrow night.
That's true.
Tomorrow night?
That's
okay.
They stretch these series out quite a bit. So anyway, gentlemen, I want to thank both of you. It's been a fun session, and we'll try to do this again in a week or two.
Absolutely. I really enjoyed it.
Okay, take care, everybody.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, L.A. and L.B.
This is
Al. David and L.B.
This is Al Blumkin, the Comfortably Zone Radio Network, signing off. We'll see you again soon. Thank you.